Hello and welcome to another inbox review. Today we're going to be looking at the HobbyBoss T26E4 Super Pershing Pilot number 1. So the reason I know about this tank is from World of Tanks. It's a premium vehicle with riot shield front armour. It is based on a prototype which is a normal T26, which has additional armour plating on the front of the hull and the front of the turret, courtesy of a cut-up Panther. So it was in France. I believe 1944 was the correct year for this to have been in France, and it was subsequently left there after the war and scrapped. So we've got a nice colour box here, a bit of information, 90mm gun, which was comparable to the 88mm in the King Tiger. March 15th, 1945, according to the box, is when it got to France. So we can do what we usually do and just smash on in here. So we have a fairly hefty instruction booklet. It is in black and white, but it's a stapled book, so to speak. We've got a layout of all the frames, and then relatively straightforward from there. Bathtub style hull, but there's bits and pieces go into that to make it all work. Then multi-part suspension. We do get in this the option of rubber bands or individual tracks. So if you're not an individual track guy, then there are rubber bands. I always like it when they give you both, because it means you can try the individual tracks, and if you screw it up, well, you just use the rubber bands. You have a backup plan, you don't use the whole kit. We do have some interior detail by way of the engine as well, which is quite nice. It looks, if I remember correctly, we'll see, it looks like the hatches are fixed, so we'll find out. There's some photo etch that does go on the top of the engine as well. And then we're assembling the back plate, the upper hull, and presumably the upper hull then goes on. So you can see stopping right around here would give you a normal T26. The addition of this panel here and this panel here is what makes the Pershing Super. It's that additional armour that comes with it. Similarly, there's an additional front panel here, and then these two, there's another one of these on the other side. These armour plates are again what makes it super with its riot shield armour. And then you put the turret together and pop it on and call it good. So the instructions are quite nice. They make sense. They're decent quality line drawings. They should work just fine. We do have a single-sided colour sheet here with a call out for a mixture of olive brown, which is only given as a Mr. Hobby colour, and green, which has everything except Vallejo for it. For the decals, we have this chalk A here and this number 2, but check this out, I might be wrong. I read on the internet that those markings were added as part of the scrapping process. So if you were modelling the vehicle in service, so to speak, you wouldn't include the A or the number 2 on it. It would pretty much just be these guys along here. But it's quite nice, it's quite clear. Essentially it's a single colour vehicle, so shouldn't be too complex even for me. Then we've got the decals here, which I neglected to cut. Let's try not lose a thumb on this. There we go. So with the decals, you can see relatively clearly. You've got the A2, and then you've got some running numbers just here. The backing paper is quite thick, but the level of clarity in the print numbering is quite nice. So that looks acceptable at the very worst. Then we've got some photo etch. Not too much, not enough to make me think this is going to be harder than it needs to be. We've got a couple of vent grills for the engine assembly, and then a couple of bits for what looks to be some storage racks. The brass itself doesn't look too thick, but it has got quite a sturdy piece of cardboard at the back of it to help keep everything nice and flat. So that's always a little bonus there. Starting to look at the parts, we'll grab the bathtub first because that's what I like to start with. You can see there's lots of mounting holes towards the rear to make sure that the engine and whatnot lines up. All the suspension parts as well have mounting holes through here for the torsion bars. Does have a little pin insert as well, so there should be no problems getting that nice and square. And then some cast texture on the lower plate at the front as well. I'm going to call that the front. Yeah, at the front. I don't know why, I seem to have... Maybe I've not had enough coffee. We'll find out. The other thing that you get in with all of this is you get 3 bags of Lincoln length tracks. These are molded in pairs, and it looks like you got 2 bags with guide horns. No, all the bags have guide horns, so it should be that every link has a guide horn on it for ease of assembly. And then of course the rubber bands. Somewhat disappointed that these are bent as much as they are. I don't know if you can see on that lower one, right around this area, it bends quite aggressively, but other than that, they don't look too bad. There's a couple little bits of flash on the extreme outer edges, but you should be able to trim that off with a little bit of care and a little bit of thought. So that's none too bad there either. The turret top has some nice texture on it. I'm not seeing much in the way of flash or defects. Ejector pin marks are on the inside, so that's all looking quite good. It does look... There's a couple of spots just here, just above my raggedy thumbnail, where it looks like it's a bit thin, but I believe you're going to have to drill out here anyway, so thinner may be better in that circumstance. 2-part barrel as well. Again, it looks quite clean. There doesn't seem to be any warping issues with the barrel. The frame it comes on is bent, but the barrel itself looks relatively straight to my eye. Maybe a candidate for getting a spare 90mm from somewhere and swapping that out. Here we have the lower part of the turret. Again, it's got a bit of a texture to it, but that looks quite nice. Little bit of a lip on the back edge at the top, but I think when you put the two together you could soften that and use it to make a bit of weld detail or something like that. Mud guards, nicely detailed, nice crispness with them. We've got springs on the inside of the hatch right here, again very nice with those, and on the other side too. Nothing glaringly out of place. This is the first armour kit I've had from HobbyBoss. I did take a look at the Aquila and it was quite nice, and this is holding a very nice standard thus far. Extra armour plate for the front of the hull. Doesn't have a flame cut edge. So as I understand it, this was all torch cut with a flame torch. So these outer edges are going to need some detail added to them. That said, we do have a very nice weld seam along the bottom edge, so I'm not going to say they did a bad job, because I think they did a pretty good job. I think this kit was 35 or 40 bucks off of Amazon. I try not to buy too much on Amazon kit wise, because sometimes you get mugged on Amazon, is what I'll say. That sounds diplomatic enough for me. It's just my opinion. Here we have some drive wheels. They did the thing where they attached it to the outside of one of the teeth. I don't know how I feel about that. I feel like it kind of leaves it too easy to mess up when you're taking it from the spruce, so a bit of care will be needed with that. There's a couple of little thready boys. I don't know if they're from a table having fuzz on it or if they're from the factory, but they just kind of come off, so I'm not too worried about it. And then some more hatch detail. The spring work, like the tension springs on the hatches, are very, very nice. I do like them a lot. So that looks good. This guy here, we've got an ammo can and some extra tracks. There are some extra track links go on the side of the turret, and they're cast to a very similar standard as the ones actually used on the drivetrain itself. So that's good. I've got this frame here, which does come with a little piece of foamy stuff that I'm going to try and keep in place, but it's just to protect some of these finer parts here. And that's something that, you know, it's little details like that that make me appreciate, you know, all right, whoever packed this in whatever country they're in, they cared enough to try and make sure that it got to me in the best possible quality. And I appreciate that. 10 out of 10 to the hobby boss, whomever he is, whether it's just one of the guys in the factory using a bit of initiative or management. It's a good job there, boys. I do like it. I believe this is engine components. That's definitely what it looks like. So you're getting a bit of detail for your money, and we do like that. But again, there looks to be pulleys and things up in the top left there. Everything's crisp and clean and nice. There looks to be a little seam around here, but some of these seams that you see on models are prototypical. They're kind of in the right place, so to speak. You just need to kind of knock them back into scale a little touch. So definitely on road wheels, I've seen prototypes of road wheels that have a seam down the middle when they're brand new, and for some reason people get bent out of shape about it, which amuses me. But the upper hull here, again, this is what you would use if you just wanted the regular T26. We've got our hatches here, so you can have everything wide open to show off your engine detail. I believe in the instructions it tells you how to paint up the engine to get it looking just so. Again, it's nice. There's a reasonable amount of texture on these front panels, as well as the serial numbers and things like that. Don't know why it says 2016 on it. I'm pretty sure the kit's a little older than that. Maybe it's just an unhappy coincidence that it looks like a relatively recent year, as well as 415 at the back on what I'm going to call either the fuel or oil filler cap, just to remind the crewman the correct item to use. This is the interior parts for the hull now. So we've got the interior sides as well as the floor, which is ready to accept the engine, and the fan units right there, which I believe is where some of the PE goes. Not entirely sure. I would need to double check that. But either way, everything looks good. You can tell by looking at it that the fans are molded as a single piece. For me, that's fine. For some people, obviously it's not going to be up to their standards, but I'm sure that if you look hard enough, you'll find someone that's either 3D printed this in a multi-part, or it's an aftermarket resin job. But given that it's a stock kit part and the price of the kit, I'm not going to complain. I think it looks alrighty. So we've got two frames here that are the exact same. I'm only going to talk about one of them. It's road wheels and suspension parts. The wheels at a first glance have a seam on them, which is slightly off center. It's to the outward edge rather than centered. I did mention road wheels having a seam on them, but whenever I've seen them, the seam has been in the middle, so you probably want to knock that back a little bit. The suspensions look fine, however, on the pinholes here, there does look to be a bit of extra casting there, which is obviously where these torsion bars are going to mount in towards the rear of the vehicle if you're choosing to show off your engine deck and things of that nature. So they're going to require a little bit of a clean with a pin vise, and as I say, two frames that are identical, so we're only going to look at the one. Up next we have some turret parts, and again these little fine pieces with, you know, gun mounts, tow bar, aerials, light covers, came wrapped in that kind of softer styrofoam just to try and protect things. The gun mountlet has a cast texture, as well as some casting markings towards the top there, and it looks good. There's nothing too much to see there. The 50 caliber machine gun looks pretty darn awesome. I don't see anything on the M2 that's remarkably different from when I last played with one. Apart from the lack of a charging handle, but that could very well be a separate part. I guess we'll find out. Then, more engine deck parts. We've got towing hooks and lifting hooks and items of that nature. We've got a headlamp here. I believe these are going to be tail lamps over here, and some items for building up stowage boxes as well. Nothing too interesting on this frame. It's kind of the normal stuff. For these grills, they're marked on both sides with the pattern, so having them open is definitely going to be a very real option for you. So that's kind of been, as I move the things out of the lid to get my box back, that's kind of been a quick look, 20 odd minutes at the T26. I do owe y'all a bit of an apology for not having released a video in a while. Work has been interesting, shall we say. I'm getting ready to move to Kentucky fairly soon from Korea, so still not been to Seoul to see the cheap model shops. There's a Tamiya store up there, but we're not allowed to go because of the COVID, which has really put a damper on what I was hoping to do with the channel. I wanted to go up there and have a poke around and, you know, film the experience. It's not come together. Anyway, next video up, I got a Hornby rail freight VEA 12-ton box van. It's a box van with air brakes for a double gauge model railway. I'm going to have a crack at weathering that. If there's anything you would like to see by way of tutorials, how do you do this, how do you do that, whatever happened to the Stug that you were working on, items of that nature, feel free to ask them in the comments. I'm not going to bore you with long stories right now. And then maybe if we get a few decent comments, then I'll put together a short video to address them. In the meantime, have a great rest of your weekend, and hopefully I will catch you next time. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more thoroughly adequate videos. Bye bye.